So is it possible that we start getting to know the audience? Because I see someone from Senegal. That's really cool. So welcome everyone to our webinar. Before we start, it would be fantastic if you can just write what you do, which country you're from, and what is your company doing. Like if you come from manufacturing or service or FMCG, what is your function in the company? What do you do in the company? And what is your country? Okay? That would be helpful for us. So we have, okay, so we have Ibrahim Badawi. We have Muhammad Ayub, Cairo, industrial engineering student. We have Mr. Muhammad Mukhtar, supply chain planner, Egypt, feeding and agriculture. We have Grant, wow, from South Africa, supply chain training consulting, ASCM. Hi, Grant, nice to see you. We have Mr. Mahmoud Zahran from Coca-Cola, Egypt. We have production section head at Asfour from Crystal. It's one of the biggest crystal making companies. It's from Egypt. Mr. Ahmed Ragab, he's from Egypt, software developer. We have Mr. Muhammad Rashimi, supply chain process engineer from Hygienic Holding, Egypt. Fine, from Fine, it's Egypt. Shihab Eldin from Saudi Arabia. We have Mr. Abdullah Saber, production manager from Cairo. We have as well supply chain consulting service from Senegal, Mr. Clement. We have Mr. Muthanna Al-Humadi from Iraq. Okay, nice, nice to have you with us today from Iraq. So now we have more countries with you. Fernanda.
Yes.
Okay.
Awesome.
And he lives in Turkey, certified trainer in e-learning and digital marketing. We have Mr. Yunus Nabil, he's manufacturing from Egypt, warehouse manager. Mr. Ahmad Omar Saleh from Egypt, Swiss Canal Authority Marine. Wow, Swiss Canal is the biggest canal in the world, so it's big authority. We have Mr. Ahmed El Sharabi, senior maintenance engineer. He is from electronics company, Egypt. Welcome. Mr. Amr Farid, maintenance and production manager from Al Ghanem Group, Saudi Arabia. Okay. We have Muhammad Salah, warehouse manager, healthcare fields from Saudi. Welcome. Agriculture engineering student from Egypt. Welcome. Mr. Ali Muhammad. We have Mr. Muhammad Zaghlul, he's from Egypt and he's studying economics and work in marketing. And he has a startup in fintech services. Interesting. Okay. And we have Khalid Al-Adawi from CFO from Oriental Weavers. He's a CFO, one of our clients. Welcome, Khalid. We have Gamal Zaki, Giza Spinning, Egypt engineering manager. Wow. So we have great collection today, Fernanda.
Yes.
Okay. So shall we start, please?
Yes, let's get started. So it's a pleasure to be here and to be with all of these different countries.
And we have Muaz, by the way, Muaz, supply chain manager from Nestle. So it's happening. Whoa. Everyone around you, Fernanda.
I like it. And it's such an important topic, Shireen. This is really nice to have all these key people here in our audience today. Thanks for joining, everyone.
Of course. So please introduce yourself.
Yes. So I'm Fernanda Debellian. I'm one of the regional directors for APICS ASCM. I'm based in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. I've been in Cairo with Shireen. I was so impressed by your beautiful country. And it's a pleasure to be here to speak on this such important topic, which is sustainability and how we change for just wanting and wishing to have a more sustainable supply chain to actually operationalize it, hands-on. How do you do it? So this will be a 1-hour session. Before I start, I invite you to, I don't know why my slide is not moving. Yeah, so if you can download our sustainability standards, it is our gift for you. It is an open access sustainability standards. You can use the QR code, download it. If you don't have, I'll share this with you, Shireen. and you can circulate it with everyone in the audience. I'll be making reference to the standards throughout my presentation. And if you need, more reference, you can just, it's an 80-page, and it has all of the practices related to sustainability, all of the macro process of the supply chain, plan, source, make, deliver, and return. So I'll be referencing these, so take your time. You can take a picture of the QR code and print it, use it as a reference guide for you. So this is what I'm planning for you today. So this is our agenda. So the first part of my presentation, I'm just gonna go over some foundational sustainability topics, really the basics. I'm not gonna go do a deep dive, we don't have time for this, but this is the basics that every supply chain professional must be aware of, that exists, and these are the trends. Then I'm going to give an overview on the enterprise certification for sustainability standards. You have the guide. This is what I just offered for you through the QR code. You have the full reference to it. And then we'll discuss a little bit more about how to leverage, how to use those standards to actually improve your sustainability reporting and do some process improvement in your supply chains. So let me start with the definition of sustainability, because we often think that sustainability just relates to environment, to green, and actually sustainability is the in-between of multiple factors. It's not just green. Sustainability is really that, that middle, that golden nugget that we say that enables to have both social, economical, and environmental practices in the supply chain. So sustainability is not just about the people, it's not just about making profit, it's not just about being 100% green, it's how do you balance all these three aspects in whatever you do. So when you talk sustainable, you don't talk just green, you talk profit, you talk the people. The other nomenclature people usually use is the 3 Ps: people, profit, and planet. So remember, so when we talk about sustainability, we need to take into consideration these 3 aspects. And when we talk about supply chains, it's about the same. So a sustainable supply chain is one that really will be able to integrate ethics, environmental responsible practice together with process excellence and economic performance. So again, it's not just about being the cheapest, the fastest, the best if you don't incorporate those other 2 elements of the people aspects, the ethical aspects, and the environment, the planet as well. And who is pushing for the sustainability? Because I mean, we hear about sustainable, but really, we don't let governments do it alone anymore. We know they're alone, it's not possible for them to do it. Sometimes there's not even a political will to regulate some of the requirements in terms of environmental legislation. So from a survey from Gartner, we see that 63% of that drive is coming from the customers, from people actually asking for more sustainability in the practices, in the products, and whatever you offer to your customer. Then you have investors. Investors, they have a key role into this as well, because they're only putting their money in this. Some people call it sustainable finance. Investors and banks are only putting their money on business that they know they will thrive, that they have a sustainable practice, that they have a proper ESG balance, and I'll talk about this in the future slides. So investors are also pushing for it. Regulators, so there is not much political will, but this is coming. We have Green Deal in the European Union. We have a consultation with SEC from the US that will oblige public companies to disclose their emission numbers, including their suppliers' emission numbers, which is a little bit more complex. We're talking about really the whole supply chain. And of course, their employees, that they want to be proud to know that they work in a company that respects the people and the environment. So these are really the key drivers of who is pushing, moving the needle into the sustainability practices. The other important concept that I wanted to bring to you is the triple bottom line. It's just another way of measuring supply chain. So according to the dictionary, it's an approach that measures economic, social, environmental impact with the intent of creating value for both stakeholders and society. So this is another way of describing sustainability. Many companies also report and do the triple bottom line accounting. This is what we say. This is another terminology you've been hearing a lot as well. And what is ESG? ESG is a trendy word that everyone is probably hearing more and more often these days. ESG is an acronym for environmental, social, and governance. It is a set of criteria of standards for companies' operations that the investors use to screen potential investments. So they look whether or not the company, pollutes or not pollutes, the environment they operate in, if they have some leadership into environment. And the social criteria, they see how they manage relationship with employees, suppliers, customers, and in governance, they see how companies' leadership, if they pay their taxes, what type of audits they do, internal controls, and shareholder rights. It has more to do, the terminology ESG has been much more used within the finance space when they talk about, whether or not it is a trusted company for someone to invest. But it's not new. There's a little bit on ESG history. It started back on the 80s when they had the huge oil spill from the Exxon Valdez, and this is how it started. Then we had the Kyoto Protocol that listed all the green gases that were affecting the atmosphere. But it really started picking up on the early 2000s when we had the launch of the Sustainable Development Goals. I'll be talking a little bit about more of these in the future. And with all of the movement now, with all the COPs and all of the pledges to transition to a lower carbon economy. So this is where we are now with this push for transitioning for a lower carbon economy. And this is something that investors and companies will be always looking for. How do I operate in a cleaner, in a low carbon operation? So what does supply chain has to do with all of that? So why does it matter for us as supply chain professionals? So investors and regulators will be looking at how companies contribute to or damage the world and the environment they operate. We have statistics that about 93% of the world's largest companies, they do report their ESG information out of transparency. They disclose it at an annual basis. And us as supply chain professionals and managers of such a big chain, important link within a company, we can either expose or hide uncontrollable risk factors that can negatively impact ESG, like, depletion of human resources, high energy usage, the waste that we generate, the type of emissions and the amount of emissions supply chains generate. Questions about human rights abuses within suppliers, not even in their own, but suppliers as well. Anything related to corruption and whether or not they comply to government environmental regulations. So all of these are within our little supply chain world, and they directly impact, the data that will be reported at an ESG level. The other important concept I wanted to share was about circular supply chains and circularity. I've tried the video before. I don't think it has audio on it. The next slide, so I'm not going to be showing that video to you, but I have, I'm sorry. So
I think there is sound. Can you make a trial again?
Oh, it came out with the sound?
Yes.
Is it working? Okay.
It's not clear, but there is something.
Fernanda, can you high the volume level?
I'm sorry.
Make high.
Can I make it high? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. You are already hearing the laptop sound, so you can high your laptop voice, please.
Make it higher.
It's maximum here. Yeah.
Can you play again?
Yeah, let's see if that works. If not, I'll skip it.
There is some sound, but it's not clear.
The sound is not good? No?
No, no.
Okay, so no worries. So we have the link for the video.
Yes, yes. And we will share the presentation with everyone.
Yeah. So the link to this video is here. It's a very interesting video. It's from the Circular Supply Chain Connection. It's another NGO that is really pushing the needle on circularity and specifically on circular supply chains. The key message from that video is that we need another planet if we were to keep using the resources we are using at the same pace. And it's really nice how it shows how we need to integrate supply chains so that we don't generate waste. So the waste of one supply chain feeds into another one. So this is the key message. It's a very educational video. It's an open access video, and I encourage you to see it and share it around. So this is the circular economy. It moves from the concept of take, make, use, and dispose, how we operate now, to a circular fashion where materials are reused. So we would be moving to a circular loop. We would make, use, collect, transform, and reuse. And there's this aspect of connecting different supply chains so that the waste of another can become a fit into another supply chain. So this is something that will come very big in the future. So the waste issue is a big one for everyone. It's not something just for Brazil, for Egypt. It is a global matter, and will need to be addressed. It will be not possible to reduce the amount of emissions that we want if we don't start embedding those circular elements into our supply chain. So people talk about circular economy, but there's also the circular supply chain. So how do we design those? And this is topic for another 1 hour, Shireen, but this is important for us as supply chain professionals to have that concept in our mind, especially in manufacturing, how we design things.
But before you continue about the circular economy, about everything, even in manufacturing, we have now remanufacturing. Exactly. We have one of the big accounts in Saudi Arabia. They are setting complete workshop, very big plans for remanufacturing, because you don't have enough resources. We don't have enough iron. We don't have enough resources to manufacture all the machines from scratch. So the future will be different. You have to do remanning. You have to try to maximize utilization of resources using technology. So it will make sense for circular economy, because currently everyone in the world knows we have world crisis for paper. So
exactly.
Circular will be more rewarding and more profitable in the future. So people have to be ready.
Exactly. We and for APICS members, we have this is free for APICS members. You just need to log into your portal. So there's a circular economy micro learning, we're calling these are value sum maintenance points for those of you that have certification. It's worthwhile. So it's a set of different videos with some questions. This is for self-learning, but it gives an idea about the circular economy. And Shireen used a great example. So this is something we'll be seeing more and more every time, and this is the future. So let me move and talk about another important topic, which is the Sustainable Development Goals. Some people call it the Agenda 2030 as well. I like to call it, this is the world's to-do list. This is what will bring us to the finish line, to be able to thrive in a sustainable future. And this is becoming more important to investors. This is driven by the United Nations. In companies, more frequently, they're reporting on the SDGs as well. So that means they not only disclose, their data, what they're doing, but they also relate it to the Sustainable Development Goals. And of course, supply chains, they collaborate to multiple SDGs if operated in line with the ethics and environmental principles. Let me show you, I think this is a very familiar picture for you. So these are the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, like what we call. So I'm not gonna go over all of them, but certainly supply chains, they contribute to mostly to some of this. I wonder if anyone want to give a shot to know which are the most ones that supply chain contribute to. If anyone has any hint.
So do you like people to write in comments, please?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Yes.
If you wanna tell me, Shireen, what are they thinking? You know, which one is the ones that they contribute more to? Yeah.
Yes. Someone wrote you. I like it. World to-do list. Okay.
Yes, it is our to-do list.
We have first answer from Grant. He says SDG 12.
Yes.
And we have another answer, all of them.
Yes, well, all of them, of course. So Grant is right. I guess you know the question for that. No, but I mean, of course, I mean, if I were to go over all of them, you would pick it up. SDG 12 talks about responsible consumption in production. So it is the way that we consume the resources and we produce. So SDG 12 really hits us the most. SDG 13 as well, which is climate action, is another huge one because it deals with all of the emissions and all the green gas that we need to manage and report. So these are the key ones. Of course, SDG 16 talks about peace, justice, and strong institutions. It has to do a lot of ethics and governance. And going back to all of them, yes, to every extent, we have supply chains impact indirectly or directly on all of the SDGs. For reporting principles, there's a terminology we use, SDG washing. This is something when we are reporting, we don't want to say, oh, we impacting all of them. So we usually report on those that has the most impact and those that are aligned with the ESG strategy of a company. I see Iman Farouk has raised a hand. Do you have a question, Iman?
If someone raises, we have a Q&A section.
Oh, okay.
So they can write you, okay? The questions in Q&A, okay?
Okay. If you want to type in your questions, yeah.
Yes, one is asking you. He says this could be an excellent talking for the Global Health Supply Chain Summit in December 2022 in Senegal. Are you aware?
Oh. No, but I'll be happy to engage and to help out. Yes.
Okay, can you we can share, Iman, can you share Fernanda's email please in the chat, so if anyone wants to talk to her? Okay.
Yeah, sure.
So,
yes.
There is a question for you from Ahmed Kazem. He says, what are the constraints which may face the circular economy? But can you explain the circular economy again? Because not everyone here knows the term circular economy. And his question, what are the constraints which may face the circular economy?
Yeah. So let me go back to the circular economy. So the circular economy is pretty much being able to reuse, to insert back to the loop of the economy, things that were considered waste. So in a circular mindset, there's no such thing as waste. Everything is reused, repurposed, remanufactured, even recycled, but in really the true circular, it's not even recycled, it's really reused. So it will be in an ideal world, operating in a no waste environment. The biggest constraint and challenge to it is how do we integrate, because it is really a big change management from the way we've been operating since the Industrial Revolution, where we have this, the linear manufacturing, lean, straight, you take, make, use, and dispose. How do we integrate supply chains and the economy and everything so that we are able to reuse the waste into something else? So this is really the key message and what's in the DNA of the circular economy. The constraint is how do we integrate supply chains, technology to be able to see how do I reuse those materials involving recycling of everything, of minerals, of plastics, of clothing, of everything. How do we repurpose waste? So this is something, they say this is truly the new industrial revolution. It's not Industry 4.0. Industry 4.0 will be an enabler for the future revolution, which is the circular economy. How do we make this happen? And this is something we need to be aware of. It's a huge change in management from the way that we as individuals, we consume the things that we buy, and from companies this to shift the way they produce and the way they're integrated to the other supply chains. So this is big. Any other questions?
Okay, please go on.
Okay, so these are the SDGs. Again, SDG, keep them in mind, 12, 13, and 16. We have direct impact over those. I'll be shifting now, just give you an overview on the certification for sustainability standards review. So this, you have the standards. It's about 80 pages. If you print in recycled paper. And this is a great tool for you to use it. So this is really what you can have in your hands to try to embed some more sustainable practices in your supply chain as a reference. So these standards is a roadmap you can use to self-assess the way you are now or redesign your supply chain, thinking about those important processes to embed in your supply chain. It is industry agnostic. You can use it in any type of industry. We've had it used in the United Nations. We have it used in transportation, in oil and gas. Because it's open access, many companies are using it as reference. And it addresses all of the criteria of ESG as well. They can use the standard to evaluate the supply chain and assess their alignment, how they're doing in relation to the standard on the 3 pillars of ethics, economical, and ecological. And they can use it to update their supply chain strategy, identify gaps for continuous improvements. It is unbiased to validate supplier quality development or selection. You can use that as a reference as well. And again, it helps on the sustainability supporting or ESG supporting. This is a little bit of the DNA, how the standards were constructed. So we took from different sources, again, based in supply chain, the differentiation here that it is a supply chain standard for sustainability. It's not a company-wide, it's supply chain focused. So we took from different sources, the Dow Jones, we have the GRI, the UN Global Compact with the SDGs, ISO. We embedded a lot of the body of knowledge from ASCM, notably the SCOR model. And of course, we do have things from CPIM, CSCP, and CLTD as well to come up with the standard that will be used. And I'll be talking about this in the future slide on ASCM Enterprise Certification, which is a company designation for sustainability from ASCM. So what is the Enterprise Certification for Sustainability? It's taking the standards a step further. So it is a globally recognized designation that organization can have to demonstrate that they have all of the standards being compliant or their process compliant with the standards. And ASCM was there with evaluators and assessed it and gave it a stamp that yes, it is a compliant and sustainable supply chain. It is also mapped to key ESG reporting frameworks, SDGs, and GRI. So if we think in a journey, you would be looking into first adopting the standards, reviewing the standards, looking to your supply chain. I'll talk about this in the future slides, embedding some of those practices. And then as a future state, you will be able to be, when you see you're ready for it, that you have met most of the standards, you'll be able to be certified as well. But we'll talk about it in future slides. This is an example of the process of the standards, how you read it. So we have 65 standards, multiple sessions where there's a definition, evidence you need to show to demonstrate that you're compliant with the standards, some metrics, key questions that was developed in 2018. It has been widely used since then. And they have been validated by many companies. And when we put this together for 3 big pilot companies, we had Boeing, we had Petrobras, we have multiple companies validating and incorporating those standards into their practices. So let me just give you an overview. It is a roadmap on how to embed those sustainable practices. So if you recall of the process, macro process from SCOR, plan, source, make, deliver, of return. We'll be looking into those processes in light of the 3 pillars of sustainability, which is ethics, economic, and ecological. So how do you plan with ethics, economic, and ecological in mind? How do you do all those processes, embedding those 3 aspects? And if you look at the outer ring, the light gray, how do we use enablers from strategy, governance, workforce, and technology and knowledge management to do those processes? And then the darker gray is how do you do all of these, take into consideration your key stakeholders, which are the community, your customers, government, and suppliers. So it is all in there. So it's a really comprehensive set of standards. I encourage you to see. I'm not going to go over all of them. I know as supply chain professionals, I don't know if you're all able to see it. So this is the list of all of the process excellence standards that we have. They address mostly SDG 12 and 13, as I was mentioning before. So this is really the hardest supply chain topics related. Then you have ethical excellence, talks about anti-corruption, codes of conduct, very much in line with SDG 16 and 17, which are the ethics and the governance SDGs. Ecological excellence, again, SDG 12 and 13 talks about water usage, all the materials usage, climate strategy, circular economy. Economic excellence, you have a list of business integrity, materiality index, how you pay your taxes, your supply chain strategy. And then there's the list of enablers. So this is all into the document in detail that I showed, that I shared with you. So how do we use all of these? So you have the power of the standards in your mind, in your hands now. You have some sort now of, of what sustainability and all the other reporting frameworks like the SDG. So how do we use it? How do we leverage those standards to improve your reporting, or if you don't do it, start doing something, or to embed some process improvements? So why report, first of all? Companies are reporting first because they want to be transparent to their external stakeholders. They are looking for reputation increase as well. So the key driver will be reputation with their stakeholders. They do get improved on efficiency because it is a review on their process and how they do business. And of course, also to get access to financial capital. That provides a list of indirect benefits, like, when you do such type of exercise, of course, you're going to have a better view and transparent view of your risks and opportunity. It will emphasize the link, you'll be seeing the link between the triple bottom line, the influences of long-term strategy. You'll be looking into process. So when you do such type of reporting and deep dive exercise into your own company, all of the opportunities, inevitably, they will come to the eyes. And also, this also helps companies avoid publicized environmental, social, and governance failures. This also kind of protects them as well. So how do we get into these ESG and sustainability reporting? Why us as supply chain professionals are involved on this? Because as I mentioned before, so the way we design our supply chain, we select our mode of transportation, our manufacturing strategy, the way we source labor, raw materials, and everything we do somehow will have an impact on the reporting of your ESG and the sustainability reporting. You will feed in the data probably. Your strategy will be part of that reporting. So it is part of our role, increasing role as supply chain professionals, to have that embedded on our daily activities and how we do things, how to embed those things into our practice that can be even leveraged to a sustainability reporting, taking this to another level. Some of the frameworks, just for awareness of the most used frameworks that companies do report, are GRI, the Global Report Initiative, the Sustainable Development Goals, and the SASB, very used in the US as well. The journey to sustainability, it begins with embedding those processes in the supply chain. So if we were to start, as endpoint, embedding sustainable practice in the supply chain, we would definitely start aligning the process with the standard, with the ASCM standard, and start embedding those practices. You can then measure and get data, and then if you want, you can report it. One question that I get often is whether or not it's mandatory to report. It's not mandatory to report on anything. It is a good practice that companies are doing more and more often, and that us as supply chain professionals can collaborate positively or negatively to it. But there's no legislation about sustainability reporting. This is an example. This is from Johnson & Johnson. It's one of our corporate members from ASCM. This is really a summary of this is kind of the first page of their sustainability reporting. I wanted just to point out to you how they do it, how they link to SDGs, and how some of them goals, strategic goals, their supply chain related. So you have here carbon neutrality for our operations, contributes SDG 12, 13 for sure. Scope 3 emission reductions, these are the emissions from suppliers, their indirect emissions, these are the Scope 3. You have supplier sustainability. This is also directly linked to us supply chain professionals, and global supplier diversity and inclusion. So again, this is kind of all in our hands as supply chain professionals. This is just to illustrate what other companies are doing in terms of reporting and how we have some interference on this. But it is not just about reporting. We can't just, it's not about just sending numbers over. How can we, as supply chain professionals, transform and redesign and design our supply chains and operations with the green footprint? So I'll talk about assessment now. So assessment, it is simple, but it's a powerful tool. We can use supply chain assessment for diverse diagnostics. We can think about SCOR-Mark, which is an assessment, is a diagnostics tools for metrics. We have resilience assessments. There's all sorts of assessments. I want to point out too, a sustainability supply chain assessment, which is an important tool that we can use to take a picture of the as-is state of our supply chain. So through those assessments, we can really see what it is now and aim for a future state. So these are what these assessments for. So if I were to suggest a way forward, knowing that now we have in hands the standards, this is how I would typically start. Start a bit smaller, scope the supply chain you want to assess. You will not start embracing the whole world. So you can scope it for a business unit. You can scope it from a product for a specific process. So scope what you want to assess. Then you can perform the assessment in two different ways. You can self-assess using the standards as reference. You will browse over the categories. You will look at your process. You see what the standard says and compare, oh, do I have this in place? Do I not have in place? What do I need to do it? Or you can do a guided self-assessment facilitated by an ASCM partner. This is another option. I'll talk about more of these at the end of this presentation. Then you perform a gap analysis. You see how you are and you compare it to the standards. How far am I from the standards? What do I need to put in place? And then you implement projects, initiatives to bridge those gaps. So this is a simple, small, but yet powerful way for you to start embedding those processes and practices into the supply chain. It is, again, as I was talking earlier, it is a change management. It's not just about, being the fastest and the cheapest. It's also about taking social aspects and environmental aspects as well. So we know it takes time, and this is not simple for everyone, but it is a way of starting small and scaling this up in the future. So this is the suggestion for how to get started and embedding those practices. This is a sample result for a company that did a guided self-assessment. In those guided self-assessments, we are able to do a much bigger, a deeper dive and compile some of the data. It's a little bit more structured, and it also gives you a clear view on how far you are from where you want to be. So this is an example of a company that did a guided self-assessment with us, and this is their ecological excellence. And one is the highest score, 3 is how far they are. They're 3 points far from being, 100%, not going to say compliant, but, close to the standard. So we can see what are the strategies and what are the process these, should be in place to make them reach top mark. So we can see here, for example, that they clearly need to embed circular practice in the supply chain, and there are opportunities for better material usage and restrictions and better management of energy, water, and waste. They do have a good climate strategy, and also could be considered a good product life cycle stewardship. So these are the things we're able to assess, where do I need to put my energy on? Where do I need to put new processes? Where do I need to zoom in? So this is the beauty of the assessment. Also, one of those assessments can show you, this is a summary, how far you are from being able to be certified if you want to go to the next step. So for this specific example, when we did the diagnostics, we could see that they really need to do a lot of work for stakeholder engagement, and they were borderline with ecological excellence, but they didn't need to do much under the other things for the certification that they would be able to pass. So this summary would show that all of the projects and activities and new initiatives should be focused in ecological excellence and stakeholder engagement in order to be certified. This is another thing that assessment can also provide. And this last slide, not last, but one of the last slides, is an example of projects. This is really just a sample because it's much more can do that would be addressing those key topics. So for example, we're talking about facility master planning revamp with environmental variables, having waste disposal and energy usage policy, responsible source initiatives, inclusion of sustainability practices in supplier assessments and qualification, review of total cost to serve, built upon the triple bottom line. This one is a great one. Review update transportation selection optimization, inserting social environmental criteria. We had just spoken with one affiliated company, and they were rushing to try to embed those environmental variables with the consultancy that they hired for just optimization, because they had just optimized in cost. So this is something that more and more we'll be thinking about. How do we embed those when we do our optimizations and simulations and calculations? For ethical excellence, these are other examples of things, process of projects, initiatives to put in place. One of the great ones is creation of audits, internal and external audits, especially with suppliers. A lot is uncovered through those external audits with suppliers related to ethics, to labor condition, human rights, and everything. And in ecological excellence, some of the suggested projects would be definitely something related to product life cycle management. Hello? Am I? Okay.
No, it's okay. So.
Okay. Embedding circularity programs, reviewing their supply chain, updating waste management process, and of course, sustainability reporting. So next steps. So we have a supply chain accelerator for those of you who would be interested in having a guided self-assessment with those deep dives. So this is a 2 days. It gives maintenance points for certification, and it is instructor-led by one of our ASM partners. In Egypt, it's Symbios. It is a great exercise, again, for you to be hands-on on how to embed those practices into the supply chain. And again, for those that really want to aim to getting certified, having a supply chain certified, it is the enterprise certification for sustainability. This would be the next step after you doing a self-assessment and being able to embed those practices. It is a great value add to get the stamp of sustainable operation in the supply chain. So with that, I think we've closed, I think, for the 15 minutes. You have my email here. You're all welcome to reach me. I'm here for questions if you have any other questions. And feel free to reach me if you think about something else. I mean, we are here to join. This is an advocacy workshop. I think as professional, we have the obligation as citizens of this planet of trying to embed those practices to see how we can move the needle and make us a sustainable future for the future generations.
There is a question for you.
Okay.
What is the difference between certification and C2C?
Certification and?
C2C.
C2C, cradle to cradle.
Can you explain? It's a question from Rafiq Raouf.
Yeah, so C2C, cradle to cradle, is a type of certification that some companies have on product lifecycle management. That says that they are able, that they have total ownership of their product from when they concept until it goes to cradle. So this is a type of certification there's that is issued. I can't remember who. I think it's an NGO. It's a company that issues the CTC. It's an important certification that awards, that testifies that that the company takes care of the product from the beginning until the end. And what is the difference between CTC and what was the rest of the question, Shireen? Not sure if I fully understood.
So what is the difference between this certification?
And the CTC? Oh, okay. Yeah, so it's completely different. Okay, so CTC, the cradle-to-cradle certification, just attests the product itself. If a company takes ownership of the product from design until really the end, so has that closed loop. This certification is really a supply chain certification. It looks into all of the processes of planning, sourcing, making, delivering, and return, with this sustainability aspect. So it is process oriented, different than a byproduct like the CTC certification. Yeah.
Okay. So he's thank you. He's giving you thank you for this, and we put our contacts here, Zainab's phone contacts for anyone who wants to connect with us for any question. We will share the recording. We will share the presentation. There is one question from you, from Herman Estrada. Say, hi, Fernanda, the 2 days training, what does it cover? Does it allow a company to have a self-assessment? Very good question.
Yes, thank you, Herman. Yeah, so this self-assessment, it will allow the company to do it. So what happens when we do this guided self-assessment through the partner, they will receive a link, a unique link, that will be able to go through all of the 189 assessments and be able to have that picture of how far they are from the standard. So this is done for companies going through this training for in-house only. The other modality of this training is open. So let's say you or Symbios wants to offer an open class. So this will be more focused on education and participants bringing their own cases. But when this is in-house, we would be providing an individual link. The company would fill out that link, and then we'll be able to provide the full readout with the results of the assessment.
Okay. So what, there was a question about what are the constraints which may face circular economy. So would you like to add anything to it?
Yeah, so I spoke about, and I think this is a great question. This is something we all need to think about. What is preventing us to add more circular elements to our supply chain? Why can't we do it? So if we look into our own supply chains, why can't we add more circular elements? Typically, the constraint is how can I redesign? So the concept of circularity, when you think about it from scratch, it begins with the design phase. So when you are designing a product, you need to start setting in mind that you'll be using materials issued from another supply chain, not just new raw material. You'll be using from another supply chain. So this is when you're starting something new, but just for having the shift for a well-established product line, how do you make the change? How we start using materials from other supply chains. I think this is the biggest constraint. How will we integrate these resources, the waste concept, into ongoing lines of products? But as I was mentioning, this is the future. So future state, new products, everything new, they're already being designed, considering waste and considering collaborations from other supply chains to feed into the sourcing side. This is, I think this is the biggest opportunity on adding circular elements, is how you source materials. Don't source new materials, don't source raw or virgin materials like they say now. The idea is more and more you will be sourcing from previously waste, recycled, reused, for any type of material which is have not been firstly used. And this is actually one of the KPIs that we have on the SCOR model, the level of circularity, the level of not new materials that you have embedded in your supply chain. Again, this is a big change in the mindset. It's a big change in management, the way we think about things. But this is something that needs to be embedded in our practice as supply chain professionals.
Okay, thank you, Fernanda, for the very interesting webinar. Thank you. I know it's Saturday, it's your weekend. You're investing the time with us. We took you away from your family and lovely boys. So thank you for sharing the information in such a simple way. And we hope you are in Egypt in COP20. Do you plan it?
Yes. But I mean, ASCM will be there somehow. We are all invited. We'll start publicizing this. So we have a space in one of the pavilions in the Blue Zone, together with the private sector, advocating for sustainable supply chains and the usage of the standards as a way to embed practices, more sustainable practices. But we need the tickets to get entering because the Blue Zone is just by invitation from the UN. So this is something we are working on, but we'll definitely have our logo. We'll be there as advocates. And thank you so much for the opportunity with this great audience. It's always a pleasure. I think it is a civil duty for us to start, talking about this more and more frequently. And thank you for the opportunity. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, someone is asking you, we need to speak about COP27 and green hydrogen.
Yes, we need to talk about yes. So I think it's a great opportunity for Egypt to be hosting this COP27. There's many expectations on what will come in terms of new policies. We know the private sector is pushing for renewable energy, transition to a low carbon economy. This is all coming. We'll not be able to hide from this too much longer. And I think it's a great opportunity for everyone to get engaged, especially it's in your countries. So I'll be looking forward to be there, Shireen, in Sharm el-Sheikh.
Yeah. So we need to speak about it because we have some people from the government, from one of the ministries, so we can circulate an email how we can make introduction. Okay. So with one of the government, yes, big ones. So why not? We need to do an email and make a trial. So we'll be together. Okay. So someone is saying thank you, Fernanda. Thank you for arranging the webinar. One last question. How can we improve supply chain sustainability coincidence with current logistic constraints? Because there are globally problems, logistics, no stability.
Yeah, this is a great question, and it's a big challenge as well. One of the biggest trends is the reshoring trend. It's trying to make supply chains simpler and smaller, be less reliable on the global network. And I think this is a trend. Abe even sent it was an interesting newsletter this Friday coming out from our CEO, Abe. People talking about reshoring, making supply chains smaller and simpler. And this is a way of making them more sustainable as well and more resilient, because the bigger they are, the more complex they are, the more management you have to have, the more uncertainty you have, especially with all of those global events that may impact, one chain of the chain, and will derail everything. So one of the ways to try to avoid all of those complex global supply chains is try to make them smaller, simpler, closer to home as soon as you can. You're going to be sustainable as well, because you need to use you emit less because of transportation. So reshoring is the key word. Yeah.
Yes, interesting. So thank you very much for the day. Thank you for what you shared. It's always great to learn from you. Thank you, Fernanda.
Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone who joined us today. Thank you. Thank you.